Hi everyone! Today we are going to talk about something that seems impossible. The lightest reservoir monitoring system you could think of. One seismic source and one receiver location only to detect a 4D effect in the subsurface. So I'm Elodie Morgan, co-founder and CTO of Spotlight. To go through this field case, we will see first why we did it, how we did it, and finally the results and how we could improve. So first, the monitoring objectives. This field case was on a gas storage. The reservoir depth was approximately 1 kilometer, and so as this was not a first gas injection, we knew that the main geomechanical property that we would be sensitive to would be pressure variation. So on this field, the stakes were the following. We needed to be light enough for the acquisition and non-invasive and cost-effective. To do that, we did this simple concept that I was talking about. One seismic source, one receiver location to detect a 4D effect through time. So now, let's be honest. With one receiver and one source, we will not detect an area so as small as a seismic bin, but we will be sensitive to what is called the Fresnel zone. The Fresnel zone is a vertical and horizontal resolution driven by frequencies, velocity gradient, the offset, and the depth of the target. So on this field case, the velocity, the Fresnel zone will be approximately 300 meters in XY direction and 15 meters in the Z direction. So all 4D effect that would happen on this Fresnel zone, we could detect it through this very light acquisition system. So now to see on the field what we wanted to detect. So it was decided that 4 spots were enough to monitor the gas activity. So here, how did we make sure that we would see these 4 spots in the reservoir? So let's speak about the target illumination. Here, on this field case, we are not completely blind. We have a previous 3D seismic of the field. So we can take this existing data and perform some ray tracing algorithm to retrieve the source and receiver location that contributed to image the spot location. Once that we have this source and receiver location known, we can gather all the raw seismic traces that contributed to this target illumination. Through these raw seismic traces, we can have what we call the common spot gather, because the only thing that these traces have in common is the spot location that you can see in green in that display. Now that we have all these raw seismic traces, we need to choose the best source and receiver location to be sure that we will detect the 4D effect wanted at the spot location. So we can perform the optimum selection on signal-to-noise ratio criteria, and we will retrieve approximately 5% of the total common spot gather. So only 4% of these traces could be used to monitor a 4D effect at this target location. But now we need to choose the best one. And to choose the best one, we will take one more thing into account. We want it to be practical on the field. So here, when we want to monitor one spot, here spot 3, we will make sure that the source location will be accessible for a truck and the receiver location will be near crop fields or near a road. And this is how we did the acquisition design. So now let's see the operational model. You can see here that we had these 4 spots and we ended up with 3 source location and 6 receiver location. The receiver location were seismic antennas of 3 hydrophones at 15, 20, and 25 meter depths. The source location were quite easily accessible for a truck, for a seismic truck, here a mini Vibe, to go from source location 1, 2, and 3. Here, we decided to perform 50 sweeps per day and to acquire 15 to 125 Hertz as frequencies. How can we determine this number of sweep and the frequencies that we will emit on the field? So once again, we have the 3D seismic data on this field. So we have a notion of absorption on that field. And the other thing that we will need to take into account is stack. So here we are not talking about spatial stack, we are talking about temporal stack. We need to make sure that the signal, that the energy that we will emit from the source will reach the same level of energy that they did during the 3D seismic. So it was calculated that we needed 50 sweep to reach a signal-to-noise ratio that was good enough to detect a 4D effect at the spot location. For example, here you can see one single shot point that was acquired on the field. And we compared it between 2 days, and you can see that it is quite hard to see a reflection, no surprise here. And you can see that between two single shot points on 2 different days, we reach 50% of normalized root mean square, which is a 4D repeatability indicator that I will be using on the rest of this presentation. Now you can see the results of 2 days of acquisition, 50 sweep stacked compared with 50 sweep stacked on day 2. You can see that we have a far clearer picture of the reflection, and we reach 15% of normalized root mean square, which is far better to detect 4D effect at the reservoir location. And most of the noise was located around the highest frequencies here. So now we can go to the processing part. So on the processing side, we needed to change a little bit about what we can do. We can't do any spatial filtering, but we will need to do some temporal filtering with the one antenna, one source and one receiver antenna. So here we needed to address several non-repeatability issues. The first one was the soil compaction. So these non-repeatability issues are mainly covered by many papers, and we know that when a truck vibrates on the soil, we will see a compaction effect. You can see here 2 source locations. So the blue curve is on a cemented area, and the green curve on raw soil and grass. So you can see that the compaction effect is not the same, and we need to correct it in the processing sequence. You can see also surface noise, no surprise again. The 15-meter hydrophone is mainly here impacted by a pump noise that was located near this antenna. And the last kind of noise that we can speak about here is the groundwater level. You can see here that during the 7 months of monitoring, we went from summer to winter and spring. So you can see that the water table variation followed a certain cyclicity, and we can see that on 2 seismic antennas, for example, when we pick the first arrival, you can see that we reach actually 19% correlation between the water table variation and the seismic signal that we have on these 2 antennas. So this is how we came to this processing sequence. And you can see that thanks to this processing sequence with mainly a lot of stack, we could increase the repeatability from 60% normalized root mean square to 12%. And this is a very good repeatability for a non-shore monitoring system. Now let's take a look at the data. You can see on the left the raw data, so one single sweep per week, and on the right the processed data. The signal-to-noise ratio was better so after the processing sequence, and we took a reference horizon to calibrate the signal and to make sure that we will cancel every 4D effect that would be happening before the reservoir level. Thanks to this processing sequence, we can now detect time shift in the gas storage to see the 4D effect due to the gas injection and depletion. So now let's take a look at the results. Here you can see several things. So in dotted line in black, you can see the pressure from the well for the gas storage. You can see that during this injection phase, the pore pressure increase and start decreasing a bit during the depletion phase. You can see also the time shift detected at the gas storage level for two antennas that correspond to spot number 1 and spot number 3. We have a positive time shift detection during this injection phase and a negative time shift detection during depletion. This is coherent with a gas activity, with a gas storage activity, as while the pore pressure will increase, the P velocity will decrease, creating this positive time shift detection. And then during the depletion, we just have the opposite effect. Here, one thing that we can notice is that the blue curve will decrease before the spot 1 curve, and this corresponds to reservoir properties as spot number 3 is on the edge of the gas storage compared to spot number 1. So this is it for the time shift detection, but we did also some more tests on these antennas. And you can see here that we don't have only the spot information. Thanks to this very light seismic acquisition system, we have the whole verticality of the trace actually. So we can do some surveillance in the overburden. And here we did an algorithm that could highlight the thickness of the 4D effect due to the gas storage. So you can see here that mainly the 4D effect is located around days 200 and 300 that is correlated with the time shift curves that we saw before. So now to conclude on this presentation, we successfully performed 7 months of light seismic acquisition on this gas storage. And we were able to detect positive and negative time shift as the gas storage activity was going on the field. We had a monitoring system that was light enough so that we would not have any problem with permitting or with crops activity going on that area. Then with such a light and novel acquisition system, we have some improvement to do. And we are now working on other type of operational model, such as the choice source. We could use a piezoelectric source, we could use a truck or dynamite. This is always here a threshold between repeatability and the energy that we need in the field to see the reservoir. We could also design receiver antennas so that we can filter specific noise on the field, like guided waves or ground wall, for example. We can think also about non-continuous monitoring with a system that would be repeatable enough. We could think about a monitoring every month, for example, or maybe every 6 months that we've done before. And with such an amount of data, we can go through some machine learning algorithm and automatize the detection and go towards prediction. Finally, what's next for such a light seismic acquisition system? Well, this reservoir monitoring gives a better understanding on the reservoir dynamics, and thanks to that, we can adapt the production scenario if needed. And having such a light and cost-effective reservoir monitoring system triggers the on-demand monitoring. We could have a very light acquisition system to put when we need it and where we need it. And finally, we could make some surveillance on caprock and reservoir and track CO2 and steam injection. And of course, we could think about an operational model on the offshore part too. Well, this was my first EIGE presentation. I was glad to do it with you, and if you have any question, hopefully the internet will let me be here live to answer your question. Thank you very much. So, as this was my first EIGE presentation, I forgot to say something really important. This paper was all about teamwork. So I would like to thank OMV for their trust and support and for allowing me to publish this work. So also I would like to thank Rosing for the field acquisition and also the amazing expert committee from Spotlight for their guidance. And finally, I would like to thank all the people that contributed to this paper. So Michael, Alexandre, Yessine, Kevin, and Jean-Luc. Thank you.